Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started in a few minutes. We look forward to a great session. And so we'll get started in a few. All right, for those that have just joined us, we're going to give it a few more minutes, and we'll get started around 12:01, 12:02. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us for our Hot Topics webinar, the transition from school to adulthood, how to prepare for what's next. We have an exciting hour ahead of us of question and answer and good dialogue. Hopefully it'll be useful, helpful for you. A couple of things to note. We have a full slide deck here. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can. For those questions that we don't get through, we will definitely provide a FAQ document that will be housed on our website, and everyone in attendance will get a notification when that's ready for you to be able to hop on our website and view answers to questions that either we didn't answer or questions that may have come through during the presentation. For those questions that do come through during the presentation, we're going to try to answer those in real time if we can, but some questions we may not be able to answer, but they will be answered, or we may not be able to answer them during the presentation, but we will answer them through our FAQ. So please use the, on your right-hand side there's a questions box. If you can, if you have any questions during the presentation, please write them or input them in there, and we'll monitor those and you know, see if we can answer those during the presentation. If not, again, we'll answer them during the FAQ. And as a, we have been asked, if you could, in the chat, if you could let us know which county in which you reside in, that would be helpful just for tracking purposes. It helps us ensure that we're providing relevant information and just know, you know, where people are where our attendees are coming from, and it just helps us understand, you know, just our reach. So thank you for that. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Next slide. We'd like to start with our mission, vision, and core values at person-centered services. So our mission: connect people to the care, support, and opportunities that maximize their quality of life. Our vision: a community where all people lead fulfilling lives. and our core values: people, integrity, and trust. Next. Yeah. So today's agenda is we're going to introduce the hosts and panelists, questions, and then we're going to go into the questions and discussions, or the questions that have been posed, and then we're going to wrap up with contact information and resources that are available. Next. Hi, I'm Jason Blackwell. I'm the Regional Director of Care Coordination for the East for Person-Centered Services. We also have Liz Kahn, who's the Director of Marketing and Communications for Person-Centered Services. Hi, Liz.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Next. And the panelists are Krista Knack. She's from Starbridge. She's an information specialist. Tanya Weissman from Parent Network of Western New York. She's a transition coordinator. And Rachel Martin from Person-Centered Services, who's the AVP of Care Coordination at Person-Centered Services. All right, we're going to hop into it. Next. Next. All right. What is a transition program? Who is it for? And when does it start? You're muted, Krista. Oh, you're still, I can't hear you.
Oh, how about now?
There you go.
Huh? Okay, so what is a transition program? So a student can exit high school at 12th grade with a diploma. And if it's a student with a disability, if they aren't getting a diploma, they might exit 12th grade with, graduate 12th grade with a credential, whether it be a CDOS credential or a skills and achievement credential. So for those students that haven't received a diploma and it's a student with a disability, they could then access what's called a transition program. Generally, that's for students between 18 years of age and 21. So a student can stay in school up to the age of 21 or until they receive a diploma. And as far as the transition programs, some districts have transition programs right within their districts. Some districts will have a student go to possibly a BOCES transition program, or there's programs attached to some of the colleges that are post-secondary transition programs through colleges. And many of those are affiliated with either an agency and or a school district. And depending if you're entering those through the school district, you would do it through what we would call that transition program.
Great, thank you.
So that starts, just to make it clear, so that starts after 12th grade. So when I say exit 12th grade, you're still attached to that school district, but you exit the school system at 21. So whether you call it graduation or whatnot, when you've completed 12th grade, after that starts that transition program.
Anything else to add? Okay. Next question. Is there an IEP diploma?
The answer to this is a solid no. No such thing. A student can exit school with either a diploma or a credential. And it could be a local diploma, a Regents, an advanced Regents, but there is no such thing as an IEP diploma.
Thank you for answering that, because I know that there's been some common thoughts around, that is the credential that someone gets is an IEP diploma. So clarifying that, I think, is very helpful.
And it's important for families to ask, fairly early on, what track is my student on? Is my child on a diploma track, or is my student on a credential track? They are two different tracks. Our students who are not on a diploma track are called, they're basically referred to as alternately assessed. So what does that mean? That means they aren't taking Regents exams. They aren't doing New York State testing. The New York State testing that they're doing, it's alternately assessed, designed and given by the teacher. So it's really a very different track. And schools are tending to wait before putting kids on that alternately assessed track, because once you're on that track, it's really hard to swing back. So if you're on that diploma track, you're being exposed to grade level curriculum. You know, if you're in high school, you're getting exposed to those Regents level classes. You're getting exposed to those Regents level exams. There are different safety net options as far as those exams for our students with disabilities. So parents need to ask, you know, once your student hits middle school, make sure you know each and every single year, what track is that student on? Because that really is going to determine the program that student is going to be accessing.
Krista, who should parents ask?
Parents should ask that CSE chairperson, that Committee on Special Education chairperson. When you're in those meetings, they could also check with the kind of anybody on your child's team, but that if the student has an IEP coordinator, a lot of districts, once a student hits middle school and high school, you have an IEP coordinator. Ask that person, ask that CSE chairperson, but you want to clear, you know, diploma track or alternately assessed. And it has to be one or the other.
Great. Next slide. Should my child attend his or her CSE meetings?
Absolutely. It is very important that they attend these meetings for a couple different reasons. I think sometimes some of the individuals at the table may only interact with that student once or twice a year just because of the role that they play. So it's important for everyone around that table to realize that, you know, this is an individual, that we're sitting at a table, we're discussing future opportunities, you know, future things for them to do, and their opinion and their input is very important with coming up with what is our next steps, what are we working towards, and also to hear from them what their future goals are and what they're thinking about their future. And, you know, some families struggle with this. You know, sometimes those meetings, there's, you know, some pretty deep things that need to be discussed that parents feel their child doesn't need to be aware of or doesn't need to hear. But I always encourage families, even if it's for 5-10 minutes, have them come down, have them, you know, be able to express, you know, how's the year going? What have they been doing? What would they like to do in the future? And they can always be, you know, go back to class and you guys can carry on with that meeting and discuss those things that you feel isn't appropriate for that young adult to be there. But, you know, the students know when there's a meeting about them, and just think, how would you feel if you knew there was a table full of people talking about you and you weren't there to be part of that and to contribute to whatever level, you know, is appropriate for them. But, you know, always encourage. This is something that in New York State, when that individual turns 15 and we start talking about transition in the future, they need to be invited to the meeting. So, you know, they're encouraged to attend. But I am a full advocate, you know, even if you have a first grader, they should be attending that meeting at least for a little bit, because they need to be comfortable and familiar with, okay, this is me. I have different learning styles, learning techniques, but that doesn't matter. These people are here to help me. They're here to help me reach my goals. So always try to include that child as much as possible.
And I'll add, from a care coordination perspective, we really want you to invite the care coordinator to the meetings as well. They are able to bridge some gaps a lot of the time for things that student needs. So we really want them to be able to be involved, especially at transition age, because what happens after you leave school is now all on the care coordinator, and often with OPWDD services or community services. So you really want that care coordinator to be involved in that discussion, hear what that student is doing, how they're doing, so that they can help prepare for what happens after school.
Yeah, it makes me think of this is a good opportunity for us to be intentional and help families understand the importance of preparation for these meetings, and ensuring that their students are comfortable and prepared for participating in these meetings. Great thoughts. Next slide. I'm really worried about what will happen to my child after the age of 21 and the bus stops coming. What do I do to prepare for that time? Who wants to take that one?
I'll start. First of all, talk with your care coordinator, find out what adult services are available. Talk with your school transition coordinator. If there isn't a transition coordinator at the school, find out who in the school is working with students on transition. And somehow get involved with other families that are in similar situations as you are, whether it's, getting your child involved in, maybe it's unified basketball, or, whatever programs are, of interest to that child. So your child is being exposed to other people, other peers of his or her own, and then you're also meeting other families, and you're talking to one another, and you're learning about what options are out there. The agencies that are out there, feel free to, hop on the websites, call them up, talk to them about some of the programs. There's some, I mentioned earlier, some of the college programs that are attached to high schools and colleges have some partnerships. Maybe look into what those are, if that's appropriate for your student.
And, that really involving that care coordinator, I think I have a little preview to the next question, which is about what is the role of the care coordinator in this process? And it is to help you bridge between going from school into potentially OPWDD services or some other kinds of community organizations and services. It's very different for every person. Some people are going to graduate from high school, leave high school, and then start working. Maybe looking for their own apartment, maybe traveling, maybe going to college, maybe going to a day program, maybe needing supports in order to work, maybe needing full total care at a day program. There is a very big spectrum for what people need and what they're going to do after school. Involving that care coordinator in what they're going to do after school is so crucial, because the bus does stop coming, the IEP meetings stop happening. While you're still in school is the time to be talking to that full team. That's the individual, the family, the school, any other supports, and the care coordinator, to say what's going to happen after school. Let's make a plan. What do we need to apply for? What do you think you're going to be qualified for and authorized for? So those discussions, the sooner you can have them, the better.
And I would just add, don't wait till that final year. Like,
right.
This is a process. This is a planning process. And in actuality, I encourage any families, the minute that your young adults hit high school, even if there is a plan for them to stay into school till they're 21, you start planning that, that freshman year, because that's going to kind of set the path. If you are thinking this is what we want in the future, let's take advantage of the opportunities the school could provide to develop the skills and the knowledge that that young adult needs for whatever some of those future plans may be. So the sooner you start planning and thinking, the smoother that transition will be, because every year you'll address something else that needs to be addressed, so that it's not a total shock, or you're not scrambling to find programming or opportunities for your young adult, you know, when suddenly it's May and, you know, they're exiting school in June. So definitely start early.
Yeah, something a care coordinator is going to do for you is if you allow them and you give the consent for them to work with the school, is to say, have they had opportunities to try some volunteer things? Have they had any vocational assessments? Have they been given ability to do community outings? How did they do? What supports did they need? Because those are all questions that the care coordinator is going to have to answer for OPWDD services. The time that they're in school is the time for the school to do those assessments and find out what the person cannot do, can do, and what supports they need to be able to do anything they can. The care coordinator is not the one who does that. They're the ones who collect the assessments to give to OPWDD to say, this is where this person's needs are.
So let's continue on with that train of thought and jump right into the next question. You know, what is the role of a care coordinator in the transition process?
Yeah, the care coordinator is really the person who tries to put it all together. They're not direct care. They're not a teacher. They're not the person who's going to spend 20 hours a week with the student. They are the ones who are going to collect the information from those people and get those assessments, put them together, look at it all together, see what the health needs are, what the physical needs are, what the supervision needs are, and then put it together for OPWDD. They submit a packet of information to OPWDD. So that's Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. I apologize, I should have said that earlier. That is who it authorizes all services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So if you are in OPWDD, which you most likely are since you're here today, that's what your care coordinator is through. You are having the care coordinator submit everything to them. They look at everything and they are the ones who authorize services. So I think of it a little bit like if you were to go to your insurance company and say, I need authorization for a physical therapy. Your insurance company says, yes, you can get this physical therapy. Now you can go find a provider and we'll pay for it. That's a lot like how OPWDD works. OPWDD says we authorize you for pre-vocational services or day services or supported employment services, and now your care coordinator can go out and find you a provider for those things. So that's really how it works. It doesn't give you a spot. It gives you authorization for your care coordinator to be able to go find you the services that you're now authorized for. So your care coordinator has to be the one who does all of that, submits all of that paperwork, answers lots of questions on your behalf, and then OPWDD authorizes the services. Once they do, the care coordinator helps you apply for services, do tours, call places, who has openings, get on wait lists, and all of those things.
Great. I think it's very important to clarify that, and I think you did a great job. Just because the care coordinator is that linkage piece, and it's a very important piece. But I think clarifying what the role is helps understand kind of how people get to where they need to get to, and the care coordinator being that key referrer or linker is critical for people being able to meet their needs. So thank you for that. Next question, please. My son graduates soon, once he is 21. He is mild to moderate ID and ADHD, and we are based in Niagara County. What is there here for him, or should we move? Also, how do I still be able to make doctor appointments because he is of age and people want to speak with him or speak to him?
All right, so you're going to hear this from me a lot. Every single person is different, and every single person has different needs and different supports that they need. So let's tackle what's here for him. So this is really important that you talk to your care coordinator about what is in Niagara County, but first, what are you looking for? Because if you want to do self-directed services, it doesn't really matter where you live. Then you're looking for staff where you live in your community. While it might be true that there are more agencies and more actual places for services in more densely populated areas, there's also more people competing for those spots too. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have an easier time if you move to Monroe County or Erie County, because there are also more people trying to get those spots, right? So it's really important that you talk to your care coordinator about what's in your area, but also what are you looking for. You don't just have to access OPWDD services either. If what you're looking for is some recreational community groups, those are everywhere. And so it's really very different for each person to know what it is that you want. Sometimes you can access services in other counties, but transportation is what you have to think about. So do you need to provide transportation? Maybe that's something that you can do, maybe it isn't. Does the service that's in the county that's neighboring you have an opening for you and they do transport, or they charge you an additional fee or something, and does that work for you and your family? So it's very, very individualized. It's important that you talk to your care coordinator about what you're looking for first, and then what's available. And then to the second question, our doctor's appointments. This, again, it depends. If this individual has capacity to make their own medical decisions, which we assume that people have capacity when they turn 18, and then you have to prove that they don't. That's really how that works. And that's how it works for me. It's how it works for everybody here. When you reach the age of majority, you're assumed to be able to do things independently, and no one makes you prove that you can do that. So the same applies for the people that we support who have disabilities. They are assumed to have capacity unless we prove that they don't, okay? So it sometimes depends on the doctor. You have the same doctor for a long time. They already know you. They've said this, this individual at this point, my medical practice states that this person needs to have you consent, has to give consent for me to talk to you. Or they say, we know through our work together that this person does not have the ability to consent and we need to just sign these forms. It really depends. If your son is, I think it says son, yep. If your son is somebody who really speaks up for himself and says, listen, I don't want my mom or my dad or my aunt or whoever is helping care for me to be involved in this medical decision, then that goes down a different path. And then is that person capable of making that decision themselves or not? There's all kinds of capacity assessments. There are courts, even if you go that far. We don't encourage that by any means. We want people to work out what they need together. I can think of one person that I work with a lot, who he really very much wants to be independent and wants to make his own decisions, but his mom is very involved in his life too. So we talked about, when you get confused or when you're not sure, we're always going to ask you, do you want to involve your mom or not? And here's the pros and cons to that for him. And most of the time he says, you know what, I think I know what I want to do, but I just want to ask my mom too what she thinks, but it's my decision, right? So it really depends on each individual person, what their needs are and how their parental figure or caregiver or natural supports are going to be involved with them.
Tanya or Kristen, do you want to add anything?
No, I think Rachel summed it up well. It's really about asking the question of, what are you thinking? And then having a conversation, even with the school district, because those individuals have been working with that young adult, and then talking to the coordinator about what is available, what could that possibly look like?
And we're also basing these decisions on, student preference and interests. So we're also trying to dig deep into, what is it the student is interested in? What is it that they like? What is it that they don't like? If we have a student that doesn't like working with animals at all, but we're certainly not going to work to find a volunteer or any position that has anything to do with animals. So it's, it's looking at that and looking at what are their strengths.
Yeah. Next slide. So the financial aspects of our son's independence concerns us. How can we prepare or protect him?
I don't know if whoever submitted this question is is on today. I hope so, and you can put in the chat if you want to clarify, because I wasn't sure which financial aspects you mean for your son's independence. So if you put anything in the chat, we'll see if we can better clarify. But again, this is something that has a lot of different considerations. There's a lot of different financial aspects. One could be that you want to be your child's rep payee, and that's for things like benefits, Medicaid, food stamps, and SNAP benefits, Social Security, and those are fairly easy to work through. And you can work with your care coordinator to figure that out. Sometimes it's, you know, my son has his own bank account, but I want to be an official user of that bank account or somebody who can oversee it. Those you do through your financial institution. And again, if your son is saying, that's fine, that's totally fine. I want my parent, my caregiver to be part of that, no problem. That's really easy. I could do that with anybody, right? I could do that with Tanya if I wanted to. But if I'm saying, no, I don't want you to have access to my resources, then it goes down a capacity assessment. Is this person able to handle their own finances or not able to handle their own finances? And what do they need in order to be able to safely handle their own finances? It could also be that the person is receiving paychecks because they're working. Who's managing that money? Who's making sure they have enough for utilities, rent, food, clothing, and those kinds of things? It's very different for every person. And again, working through your care coordinator, you can see what it is that you need in particular.
Great. We have a few questions that have come in and during the session. So Liz, you want to hop on and ask?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to remind everyone that you know, there's a lot of questions coming in. There's a lot of questions that we had submitted earlier. So if you don't hear your question answered, we will try to answer it and make sure we get it out in an email to everyone who registered. So there was a couple kind of quick ones, I think, and then we'll get to some more in-depth ones. But one was just, will they receive a certificate for the credential program?
They'll receive a credential. So it looks like a diploma, but it's not a diploma, it's a credential. And it'll say whether it's the CDOS, it'll say the CDOS, or if it's the skills and achievement, it'll say skills and achievement. Now, for some students that are getting a diploma, you might also get a skills or a CDOS credential. So you could potentially have both.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Krista, what does CDOS stand for our audience?
Oh boy, okay, I can do this. Ladies, I might need help. Career Development Occupational Studies.
Thank you.
Someone is asking about how the care coordinator can be involved if they're unaware of the meeting, if they don't get a CSE invite.
So it's very important for all of you parents on here to ask that your care coordinator is invited to the meeting. And if you get a meeting invite, reaching out to your care coordinator and saying, hey, we have a meeting scheduled, can you come? And most of the time, they're going to try to prioritize being able to come. If they can't come, then they can ask for, you know, how did it go afterwards? Or did you get any new information, talking to the CSE chair even? They need your consent to do that. Okay, parents, they really need you to be the one who says, yes, I can have the care coordinator be part of the meeting. I want the care coordinator to be part of the meeting. For those of you who are here from schools, encouraging that the parent invite the care coordinator, making sure you have that contact. It really does come down to parental consent though. So we really want our parents to provide that consent so that we can work together.
And this is sort of, we have an interesting question from a special education teacher at a local agency school for students with significant disabilities or medical needs. And this person is saying that they have always been prompted to encourage parents to apply for guardianship, and especially for students that are very clearly unable to advocate for themselves or do not have the capacity to make major life decisions. Should we not, or should we be encouraging parents to apply for guardianship?
So I would not encourage that as an across the board thing. And truly 20 years ago, that was definitely what people were doing and were encouraging. But a lot has changed with individuals with disabilities and wanting to assume that people can make their own decisions. Guardianship is a very stringent, very strict way of helping someone to achieve their goals and dreams. It really restricts somebody into not being able to make their own decisions, and that's very all the way over to one side. I think there's a lot in the middle that people can do, and certainly guardianship is the right answer for some, but it's going to that most restrictive, and that's not what we want to do. We don't want to go to a most restrictive environment for people. We want to give people the ability to be in their least restrictive environment. We've also found over the last several years that the surrogate court is not granting guardianship the way that they were, again, 20 years ago, where they were saying, oh, you have a developmental disability, yep, you can have a guardian. That is not the case anymore. And they want people to have capacity assessments to say, is this individual able to make their own decisions or not? And just because we say make their own decisions, it doesn't mean that they only make good decisions. I make bad decisions. We all make bad decisions. We all certainly made bad decisions when we were 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, or 35, you know, and you're able to make poor decisions, but that does not mean that you can't make decisions for your life. So it does depend. I would not encourage that schools are sharing with mass groups of parents that they should go for guardianship. That really needs to be done on an individual basis. And sometimes it is appropriate and sometimes it's not the right path.
And I would like to add that guardianship does not mean control. It means helping someone be able to make the decisions that they think make sense. So even if someone has guardianship, I think this, you know, there's a way to think about it that still can provide a good amount of control to the person that they have guardianship for. So having those discussions is important as well.
And I think too, I think guardianship was always brought up, and I'm like Rachel, when I first started in this field, that we were encouraged to encourage families, but there's other safety things that are out there, and it's about asking the questions and looking into, you know, there's durable power of attorneys, which means you parallel together in making decisions, the healthcare proxies, you know, talking over with the medical professionals of, you know, what could that look like. It's, you know, there's a lot of ways, and it really does come down to that capacity of that individual. And, you know, like Rachel said, we are going to have some individuals that truly do meet that guardianship criteria. But if it's, you know, not cut and dry, that's when we just want to have those conversations of, okay, how can we make sure that they're protected, but give them that freedom and, you know, the dignity of choice of, you know, making those decisions on their own. So it is something we need to bring up with families, and a lot of times it's beyond the scope of the school. So I think it's important for schools, you know, professionals to know who to send families to help answer these questions and really figure out what is the best for, you know, our young adult as they're, you know, transitioning into this adult world.
So I just want to say there's a couple more guardianship questions coming in. We know that guardianship is a huge topic, and there's always a lot of questions. And we have done a Hot Topics webinar about guardianship in the past, and it is available on our website, but we might also consider doing another one soon. And we will try to answer these, but I just want to move on with one unrelated other question, if that's okay, Jason. We have time for maybe one more, because someone was asking about post-secondary college programs and how to start to, I think they want to know how to start to navigate that, and I'm sure that's a broad topic as well, but maybe just the panel could just touch on it.
I will, and I can really only talk to our area, so I rely on Tanya and Rachel maybe to talk as far as Western New York, but I know as far as the Rochester area, there are several programs. For example, it's called the Life Prep Program at Nazareth College. So that is a collaboration between Arc of Monroe, Victor School District, and Nazareth College. I use that as an example. It is not the only one. There's an application process to get in. So just because Victor's is a part of that collaboration, it doesn't mean that other districts can't apply to those programs. So it is an application process, and it's for students that it's a kind of a vocational and a bit of an academic experience. You're not getting academic credit. You're able to audit classes on the campus. You'll have some vocational experiences where you're building those vocational skills. And it's for students that have kind of a level of independence that could be, that can work independently for say 30 minutes at a time and could navigate a college campus once they learn the campus. So it doesn't mean you're dropped there and then left to figure it out, but eventually you're able to navigate the campus, be involved with campus activities. Different colleges have different kind of mentor programs that they can offer up. Another program is the U of R program. It's called the U of R Tour program, and that's through Monroe and BOCES. There's a program with Roberts Wesleyan, and I can't remember which school and which agency are attached to them. I believe if you Google Think College, it'll come up with a map, and it's got a real nice layout of a lot of the programs out there. It's got the contact information on who the contact person is. Usually it's the director of special education if a school is involved. And the way it works is we had talked earlier about transition programs. So there's kind of two ways to access. One, as a transition program from your school district, or two, let's say now you've exited school, maybe you're in the adult world, but you could then access some of these programs through an agency. So let's go back to the Life Prep program at NAS. If you're a high school student doing a transition program, you could enter it that way. If you're a student that's already exited high school, you could go through the Arc of Monroe. And again, you're going through the application process in both instances and see if indeed it's a good fit for you.
And I'll add that I think, if not all, most colleges have a disability services office. And that is to provide accommodations to students to see what it is that they need. It's really important to know, are you taking classes because you want to work toward a degree, or do you want college credit for it? Or do you want to just audit classes? Do you just want the college experience? And that is very different. If you want to work toward a degree, you need to apply for college like anybody else, but you may have supports to do that. You might have somebody helping you to fill out the application, to make sure that you have everything there, to advocate for you in that application process. But ultimately, you still have to be accepted if you want to go through a degree program. If you want to audit classes, that's very different. If you want to just have the experience of being on a college campus, there are some pre-vocational services that might do that and offer you that opportunity, but it's not for credit. So it's really important to talk about what is it that you want to get out of that college experience. And then if you are, especially if you're going to be on a college campus and it's going to be through the college itself, making sure you contact that disability office. That can be physical accommodations. It can be having somebody help you with taking notes. It can be having somebody being able to proxy your exams so that they're read aloud to you, or you're given extra time to do them. There's all kinds of different things, and they are very well versed in providing those accommodations, telling you what accommodations are available to you, and they're very individualized.
This actually dovetails really well into the next question. Are there any local college experiences available with skills and achievement commencement credentials? We live in Genesee County.
So I did reach out to my local director who's in Genesee County, and they said that they do believe that Genesee Community College has some supports that they offer through their Center for Academic Progress Center. So that's something I would go right to the care coordinator if you have one. Hopefully you do. If you don't have one, then you could potentially reach out to Genesee Community College and ask them for more information about that. But if you have a care coordinator, that's when you use them and you say, hey, can you look into this and see what this entails, so that the care coordinator can go and do that linking and referring for you, get that information, break it down for you about what does it mean for your student. If you call Genesee Community College, I'm sure that they would help you and give you brochures or information or a website. But if you have a care coordinator who's doing that with you, they know your student and they can ask even more pointed questions to that program and say, hey, does this make sense for the student? This is a little bit about them. Is this something that's worth looking into for them?
And usually many parents, by the time they get to this point, what's the word I'm looking for? They get to be very, very good advocates for their children because they've been doing it for a while. And I only bring that up. I talked to a mom literally just last week, and she had a really kind of unique experience. I can't remember exactly where she lived, but she basically put together a transition program for her son. It was her son. She hit up one of the local colleges that was nearby that actually didn't have a college program yet for students with intellectual disabilities. She worked with the college. They said yes. She worked with her school. They said yes. They got BOCES involved as far as transportation. She included her care coordinator. So the student ended up doing a program at the school for, I think, 2, maybe 3 years. The student's going to continue for that 4th year, but now the student exits high school, and what they're using now, they're using the self-direction component to support the student in that college environment. And the parent put this all together, kind of just, taking what her son was interested in and piecing it together. And she put together a beautiful program. And she talked so eloquently about how much he flourished with having access to this program. And, they've been able to add, staff people from the college into his self-directed plan. So it really was a cool kind of use of everybody putting their heads together and thinking very creatively on how to kind of best support the student, along with including what is it the student wants to do. So they did a beautiful job of it.
And that kind of speaks to your point earlier around the importance of formal and informal networks. Just finding people that have gone through the same experience. I'm sure that story probably resonates with some people who are in attendance today. They may want to seek out that person to understand how they did that, and that's the beauty of these sessions. But that's the beauty of really the community and working with a care coordinator to help navigate some of these networks to build a broader perspective, right? And create just greater understanding about what options are available. So very, very good point. And actually, you guys are like right on the money, because you're just like segueing into the next questions. So the next question is, what do self-directed services look like once independent?
I'll take this one. It's up to what does that mean for you, right? So I know people who are independent who are able to move about, walk, run, and all that. But I also know people who are very independent who are in a wheelchair and need someone to help them with toileting and turning over and making sure that they don't get bed sores. So that's very different for every person. And kind of the beauty of self-directed services is it's really, what are your specific needs? What do you need to be able to be independent? What does independent mean to you? That's very different for everyone. I know a lot of people. I use my dad as an example because I swear he couldn't have lived on his own without my mom. But he couldn't have cooked a meal ever, and he had a master's degree and no disabilities. So we have to take our personal thoughts of what independent means out of it. He would have eaten TV dinners every night, and that was his independent. So if that's your independent, that's okay. But if your independent is cooking a 4-course meal, that's your independent. So that means something different to everyone. It's very important to be looking at each person individually and saying, what does that mean to you? And what are those things that you maybe need to let go of? and it's different.
It's a very good point. So next question. What advice do you have for service providers in schools who have children they know need OPWDD services, but for whatever reason cannot get their family to start or get through that front door process? Does person-centered services provide case management for families to help take them through the OPWDD front door process?
So we do have a very comprehensive intake and enrollment department, and our intake specialists can do whatever it is that people need. Sometimes people need their hand held through that process, and that's okay. We understand that. It's cumbersome, but it's cumbersome to the intake specialist mostly, right? And the intake specialist will work with the family to try to make it as simple as possible. If you sign consent for an intake specialist, they can go get the documents. They can go get to the schools. They can get the assessments and put it all together. You might have to sign a lot of paperwork, and that can be intimidating for a lot of people. The intake specialist can sit with you at your kitchen table and say, this is what this one means. I know there's a lot of words on this page, but let me break it down for you. This is why you need to sign this one. We also have an orientation video that's right on our website to help people to understand what's in the intake process and what to expect, and kind of help to walk them through it. But also that one-to-one person is really the best way to get people through that process. So yes, we do have our whole department that's dedicated to helping people get through into OPWDD services.
I'd just like to add to that, sometimes I think just because we mention something to families or we provide them a piece of paper doesn't mean that there's always an understanding or of the value of what we're trying to connect them to. People talk to people, and some people, may have had a bad experience in the past or felt like they went through all of this and then they didn't really get anything out of it. I think sometimes it's busting myths that families may have, but I think it's also looking at that family and their capacity and, why do you feel that they're not following through? Is it lack of they at this point they just don't understand of what that is? Is it at this point they're just trying to get through the day and this is just something that does that? So I think trying to provide this information in multiple ways across the year, not just at that one meeting that we have every year, and that tends to be when it happens. So asking PCS to come for a family night, or speaking, when you do open house, this is one thing that we have found very successful in our area. Schools do an open house, inviting organizations like PCS there to immediately answer questions for families and get them connected right there so that it can be facilitated outside of school. We need to remember, for a lot of our families, schools do a lot. They provide a lot of support. They put a lot of things in place before the families even know they should be asking for it. And now we're just telling them this, and then we're like, oh, you got to do it on your own. Some families kind of need that bridge. So we need to provide opportunities to provide this information to them and get them connected to the right people so that it can move forward.
Yeah, Tanya, I love your point around involving the care coordinator, right? Involving, because oftentimes that will help in the future. So if that care coordinator is involved, then as a family goes through the transition process, a student goes through the transition process, that care coordinator is going to be there, and it's going to, for the most part, there will be relevant questions asked, right? They'll be supported in a way that would help them navigate the process a little bit smoother. So, as we mentioned earlier, if you have a care coordinator and they're not as engaged in the CSE process, please, try to get them engaged, because that will help the transition process. Where are we on time? So 12:53, probably have time for a couple more questions. So the next one, we live in Wayne County. My child will be graduating in June 2023 and is on the autism spectrum. What are their services, their service options post-graduation? What are the eligibility requirements? How can we best define the best placement, be it employment or a day program, part-time or full-time, living at home or in a community home? That might take us to the end. This might take us to the end. This is a loaded question.
This is a loaded question, and you know, and I would wonder. I don't know if the parents are on for this one or not, but I'm wondering, like, graduating. Does that mean graduating 12th grade and still has a few more years for transition, or does that mean the student's 21 and exiting school? So that would help sort of with this answer. And again, I'm going to kind of lean on Rachel here as far as, you know, having that care coordinator is going to know about the agencies and the services available in your area. And if it's, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's a care coordinator you've had for a little bit and that you've hopefully brought into some of these school meetings, that has an idea of where the student is as far as their abilities, and can start to help put in some of those applications, the necessary authorizations, the OPWDD. And what is the student?
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you're asking these questions now. And this is what you need to go to your care coordinator and ask them now. Don't wait until the fall or even worse, the spring. Do that now and say, these are the exact questions that I want parents to be asking, but I also want care coordinators to be asking. And this is my plug for, if your care coordinator is not giving you what you need and not able to work with you through these questions, I want you to reach out to their supervisor, okay? Some of our care coordinators are newer and some need some help. And if you are not getting what you need ever, you reach out to any of us. You can reach out to Jason or me. I don't care if we're in Wayne County or not. I want you to reach out to us because we want to help and make sure that you get the services that you need, okay? These are the exact questions you should be asking before transitioning out of school and going into adult services, because the sooner we start on these things, the better. I love this question. How can we best define the best placement, be it employment or day program? That care coordinator is not the one spending, again, 30 hours a week with this student. The school is. The care coordinator can reach out to the school and say, hey, what kinds of things are they doing? What experiences are they having? What supports do they need? What's going on? Have they had work experiences? How did that go? What supports did they need to be independent? What is really interesting and a big shift is that schools tend to be strengths-based, and that's awesome, except that when we need authorization for services, it needs to be needs-based and not strengths-based. So if there is a student who is doing a volunteer opportunity and loves it and is doing great, and all the school has is they love it and they're doing great and they did so well, we were so excited for them, OPWDD sees that and says they can do volunteering. No problem. What the care coordinator is going to come in and say, that's awesome. They loved it. They want to continue doing that. What supports did you give them to do that? Did they have one-on-one support to do it? Because that's very different than that person can go and volunteer in an animal shelter, no problem, and we don't need to authorize any services for them. They need to be able to ask those questions, and they need time to be able to ask those questions and say, was it hand over hand? Was it total support? How much did they do independently? Did they have to be reminded many times to continue to stay on task? And those are things you can do now. So I'm so happy to see a parent asking this for a 2023 graduate in 2022, because this gives you some time to be able to work through these questions with the school and find out exactly what their needs are. So when you go to do authorization for services, you're going to have a better picture of exactly what this person needs.
Yes, so Tanya or Krista, do you want to add anything? This is going to be the last question we have for our webinar today. But I want to give you the opportunity to add on to that if you would like. Okay.
I think Rachel pretty much hit the nail on the head on that one. It's so nice that you're asking those questions now, and you are asking the question. Those are the questions that you need to be asking, and it's great that you've already identified the questions. Sometimes that's half the battle, And Rachel just kind of gave you the who. You've got the what, now you've got the who to kind of figure out the how and the why. Actually, you even have the why.
Yeah.
And I would just say that, you know, just in general, you know, this is a process. That, you know, this isn't something we should be trying to scramble and figure out at the end. You know, it is transitioning, and transitioning implies phases and time and steps and things. So, you know, the sooner we start thinking about it and looking at it and figuring out the different opportunities, you know, the more likely are to find what's going to work or what we think we're going to need, you know, when it moves towards the future. And, you know, so for my parents, keep asking questions. You know, the more questions you ask, they lead to more questions, which lead to, you know, maybe potentially seeing different programs that you didn't know were out there, or if it was even possible. You know, just keep asking those questions. And any, you know, school professionals that are on here, keep finding ways to reach parents. Don't just count on that one meeting a year that, you know, all the questions are going to be answered. You know, just keep finding different ways to present this information, to exposing families to different opportunities and different things that are out there.
Okay, and with that, I want to thank Tanya, Krista, and Rachel for the wonderful discussion. Great answers to the questions that were posed. Thank you all for participating. And we will, as mentioned earlier, we will have answers to all of the questions that were asked, and the ones that we didn't get to, they will be on our website. You will receive an email notification when those are available. And we look forward to you participating in future Hot Topics webinars. So thank you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.